Hello and welcome to a new video here on my channel. Today I present to you the story, Pandora and the Eternal War, video 13. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and recommend my channel to your friends. That would help me a lot. In this video, I'll be sharing the final round of the Meta Cup and introducing the Helios Academy. I hope you enjoy the story. Pandora stretches and glances at the glowing timer displayed by the hologram projector on her arm. 15 minutes remaining. She turns to Camilla as they approach the building, curiosity flickering in her eyes. What do you think will happen? Do you believe the teams will just sit back and do nothing, letting everyone win? Or do you think some will try to seize the artifacts of others to secure their victory? After all, only one team, or maybe a few, can claim the top rankings if they manage to take control. Pandora's voice carries a mix of amusement and calculation. Camilla sighs, her pace steady as they near the entrance. Pandora, do you ever take anything seriously? This isn't some playground. You know as well as I do that the likelihood of everyone doing nothing is close to zero. Someone will make a move. They always do. Pandora tilts her head thoughtfully. I suppose you're right, but there's also the odd chance that all artifacts could end up destroyed or untouched. Either way, that would result in everyone winning. Her lips curl into a sly smile. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Camilla gives her a sidelong glance, her expression unreadable. Hilarious, sure, but also highly unlikely. No one wants to share the glory. Even if the rules technically allow for multiple winners, greed and pride will push them to fight. Pandora nods, acknowledging Camilla's point as they step inside the building. The rest of their 20-member team follows, each focused on the goal. With only 15 minutes to reach the rooftop, they waste no time. Together, they take the stairs at a brisk pace, two of their members opting to scale the building's exterior for an edge. Pandora silently tests her abilities as they ascend, already planning how best to maneuver if things take an unexpected turn. When Pandora reached the rooftop, she saw skeletons lying near the edge. Their skulls bore holes that seemed to indicate the cause of death. From her past experience in chaos zones, Pandora deduced that such zones form from the negative emotions of the dying and the clashing powers of heroes and vampires. Of course, there might be other variables she didn't yet understand, but this seemed like the best theory so far. The real question was how extreme the conditions had to be to create an S-rank chaos zone. I'm going to put our artifact in stasis. Then no one will be able to steal it, said a young figure with bluish turquoise eyes and dark, rough, long hair. When Pandora looked closer, she felt the person might be a rather young girl. Examining her further, Pandora thought she looked pretty striking in her armor. Shaking her head to refocus, Pandora asked the young girl what she meant. Didn't you watch my fight? The girl asked. Well, I might not have watched the whole thing, but your power seems to slow people down, right? Pandora replied. The young girl frowned and introduced herself with arrogant pride as Fox, the daughter of the clan chief of the Asile clan. With enthusiasm, she named her ability Nevermore. Pandora found the ability fascinating as she watched Fox raise her hands, creating a bubble around the pyramid-shaped artifact on the table. Through the passive effects of her Void Arcanus, Pandora sensed the space around the artifact entering a frozen state. It felt as though the area had become unchangeable at that moment. Fox reluctantly admitted, through gritted teeth, that her ability's drawback was her need to remain nearby, or the effect would dissipate. While the other members of the 20-person team discussed their strategy, Pandora mused about what she could do with Fox's ability if she were to steal it. Shaking the thought away, she reminded herself that her current ability was already overloaded with stealing others' powers. For now, the priority was winning the game and gaining admission to the Helios Academy. The preparation time is over. All teams may now destroy or steal the artifacts of others. Please note, there are two scenarios in which all teams can win. The first is if all artifacts remain intact and in their original locations. The second is if all artifacts are destroyed and no team has one left. Let the game begin. Have fun and play fair, a voice announced through their helmets. Somewhere in the distance, fireworks erupted, lighting up the sky in a brilliant display. So what strategy should we use? I think we should split our group into two smaller teams. One stays here to defend, while the other attacks and tries to steal artifacts from other teams, Mio suggested. I actually think that's not a bad idea for a city dweller, Fox replied. What's that supposed to mean? Are you trying to insult me? Mio shot back. No, I would never dare, Fox said smugly. All right, enough. I think it's a pretty solid plan, Reno added. That girl Fox is connected to the Asylum clan, Pandora thought to herself. I wonder if Camilla finds that as interesting as I do. I should check if her arcanise has anything to do with zombies or puppets. Pandora stepped closer to Fox, her gaze fixed and concentrated. As she focused on her, Pandora could see that Fox possessed only one arcanise. It appeared as a small orb of white-gray light. When Fox noticed Pandora standing so close, she hesitated for a moment before asking, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Pandora replied flatly, her tone dismissive. Without addressing Pandora's slightly odd behavior further, Reno continued the conversation. "You've got two arcanis, right? I think you should stay here and protect the artifact. Meanwhile, I'd send Camilla to the front lines since she has a gravity-based arcanis. What do you all think?" As Fox, Icy, Makito, Reno, Mio, and Frank discussed their strategy, those leading the conversation began noticing something peculiar. Camilla seemed glued to Pandora's side. Whenever a decision involved her, Camilla would glance over at Pandora for approval. From time to time, Pandora would give a subtle nod, as though silently sanctioning Camilla's role. To Fox and Reno, this interaction seemed strange. But Frank, whose arcanis allowed him to fly and granted him keen observational skills, noticed something deeper. Camilla didn't just seem close to Pandora. She appeared utterly dependent on her. If Frank had to put it into words, he'd say it felt like Camilla was obsessed with Pandora. Frank continued to observe the dynamic between the two women, and his unease only grew. It wasn't that he had any issue with two women being close, or even romantically involved. It was the unsettling vibes radiating from their connection. Something about Camilla's attachment to Pandora felt off. As their team finalized their strategy, they settled on a straightforward plan. Two members with powerful and versatile abilities would stay back to guard their artifact, while three others, equally capable, would go hunting for artifacts. The remaining members would be the offensive force, targeting other teams. As a contingency plan, they agreed that if they lost their own artifact, they'd focus on stealing another. And if that failed, they'd fall back on the last resort, destroying everyone else's artifacts. After all, there were three ways to win the game. 1, protect your own artifact until the end. 2, steal another artifact and hold on to it. Or 3, ensure that all artifacts are destroyed, forcing a universal win for all teams. With the strategy set, it was decided that Pandora would stay behind to guard their artifact alongside Fox and 3 other members. Pandora didn't know very well. As the group dispersed, Pandora began to think deeply about how best to leverage her unique abilities. Her first thought was to combine her skills creatively. One idea stood out. She could pair her illusion abilities with her portal manipulation. By opening an invisible portal and firing her plasma attacks through it, she could create a system of unpredictable assaults. If she placed multiple portals in a 50-meter radius and had them randomly open and close, she could launch attacks from unexpected directions without ever moving herself. Even more intriguing, Pandora considered disguising her portals with illusions, giving them false appearances or making them seem like entirely new phenomena. She imagined creating a dizzying array of fake patterns, attacks, and effects that would keep her enemies guessing. Sitting on a small piece of debris, another idea struck her, and a sly grin crept across her face. It would be hilarious to test this with Camilla, she thought. Her mind raced with possibilities. If I create illusions in my pocket dimension and adjust its spatial loop settings, I could simulate any scenario I want. Since my pocket dimension is currently empty, I could do just about anything in there. I have to try this out with Camilla. The possibilities made Pandora's wicked smile widen. The idea of deceiving others with such elaborate tricks was almost too good to be true. While combining abilities was challenging, Pandora's stolen arcanis provided her with an instinctive understanding of their usage. When she fused 2 abilities to create a new one, it often resulted in an entirely unique arcanis, something the world had never seen before. However, such abilities didn't come pre-packaged with mastery. Pandora would still need to train herself to use them effectively. As Pandora mulled over her ideas, her excitement grew. Pandora's mind wandered as she stood atop the building, gazing out at the horizon. The city stretched before her. Her thoughts shifted as she considered the S-rank danger zone, the city of lost souls. Her gaze lingered on the distant skyline, and she couldn't shake the unease that gnawed at her. The city of lost souls was notorious. It was a place where even the most powerful warriors rarely ventured without grave caution. Pandora knew of the chaotic radiation that permeated the area, but that wasn't what worried her. Her immunity to chaos energy made her resistant to its toxic radiation. No, it was the physical anomalies, those unpredictable, mind-bending distortions of reality that she feared. The stronger the chaos energy, the more violent these anomalies became. They bent the laws of physics in such bizarre ways that even Pandora wasn't sure how close she could get without risking her life. The thought of entering that region made her hesitate. No, she couldn't step inside directly, but she could siphon the chaos energy from its edges. Pandora's thoughts swirled as she assessed Fox, who stood nearby. There was something strange about her, something unsettling. Fox kept glancing around, wary and alert. She muttered something under her breath, calling Pandora and the others city dwellers. Pandora's eyes narrowed, focusing intently on the girl. Fox was part of the Asylum clan, a force Pandora wasn't eager to draw attention from. Pandora's knowledge of the clan's reach and influence made her tread carefully. She couldn't afford to underestimate them. And if Fox was telling the truth about being the daughter of the clan leader, then that was definitely something Pandora needed to keep in mind. It could be a major piece in a much larger game, one Pandora wasn't sure she wanted to play. Time seemed to drag on as the minutes passed slowly. Pandora's mind wandered, growing bored with the silence. Nothing was happening, and she found herself idly pondering her next move. But then Fox's voice cut through the stillness. "Enemies are approaching," Fox said, her tone low. "I'm going to hide so the bubble around the artifact doesn't break." Pandora frowned, a sharp edge to her expression. She stood up from her perch, a sharp crack ringing out as her foot landed on something brittle. Her foot bone creaked slightly, but it didn't bother her. She was too focused on the distant figures she saw approaching from the rooftops of the residential district. With a swift motion, Pandora reached over to Fox, grabbing her by the hood and yanking her closer. "You'll fight," Pandora demanded, her voice firm. "No running off. Get your hands dirty like the rest of us." Fox, ever the picture of arrogance, scowled and tugged at her hood. "Release me, woman. Fighting is a fool's task, something only fit for peasants like you. I don't see why I should waste my time on such trivialities." Fox's words carried an old-fashioned, almost noble arrogance, as though she were speaking to an inferior, despite the fact that she was wielding technology like anyone else in this age. Pandora's eyes burned with annoyance, but she held firm. She didn't care for Fox's condescending tone. She was used to dealing with the arrogant. "Do as I say, Fox. You're not running away," Pandora snapped, her fingers tightening around the girl's hood. "We'll face whatever comes together." Fox hesitated, clearly irritated, but Pandora didn't give her a choice. The situation was growing tense, and she needed to focus on what was important, surviving the upcoming conflict, no matter who else wanted to run from it. As Pandora contemplates the idea of defeating these young heroes, before they become a real threat, she suddenly feels something inside her holding her back. She hadn't thought that she still had any moral reservations. The hatred burning in her heart isn't directed at these young heroes. Rather, it's aimed at the arrogant false heroes who cause more harm than the villains themselves. Pandora is briefly taken aback by this internal realization that her hatred doesn't extend to all heroes, but only to certain groups of them. As long as she isn't forced to actually kill one of these young candidates, she probably wouldn't do it. She's unsure why she is only realizing this now. Pain shoots through her right shoulder as her armor cracks under the pressure, and the black acid begins to seep into her flesh. However, it feels insignificant compared to the internal pain she suffers from the loss of her father. Suddenly, Pandora experiences something strange, as her body instinctively shifts from human form to her vampire form. The burning sensation from the acid and poison begins to subside, and as she focuses more, it feels as if the chaos energy in her blood is fighting off the poison. Pandora decides to cut herself free, using her plasma. She forms a turquoise blade of hot plasma around her right hand, quickly spinning it around her body to slice through the vines. With a powerful thrust, Pandora propels herself from the shredded pile of vines, soaring through the air for a few seconds before landing back on the ground. Pandora notices the woman she remembers from the race a few days ago, the one with the vines, now confronting another group. She feels bewildered, realizing that there isn't just one team fighting, but it looks like 3 teams are involved at this location. Since all the individuals are wearing similar armor with only specialized variations, it's hard to keep track of the chaos unfolding. There is, of course, the group communication channel, but it's far too chaotic for Pandora's taste when more than 4 people are shouting over one another in a rush. A high-frequency sound suddenly cuts through to Pandora, causing her ears to ring as if they might explode. The noise is so intense that even the other heroes try to cover their ears, though it barely helps with the helmets on. Pandora notices the ground around her stirring slightly as if the pressure is coming from a specific direction. While she's not an expert in physics, she knows that this level of sound pressure would require an immense amount of energy, about the level of a C rank or B rank Arcanist user. She's stunned that someone could have that much power. Pandora hopes the noise will dissipate, but for now, she has no way to stop it. Something unusual catches her eye when she notices that her blood is violet. The surprisingly large wound on her shoulder is spilling violet blood, which seems to be breaking down the black, sticky, toxic substance. Pandora compares it to a metal burn in a lump of steel wool. She doesn't understand how her blood is now able to neutralize the toxic substance, but as it does, the blood seems to multiply. The blood that hits the ground appears to be 10 times more than she should have lost. What the fuck? Pandora wonders aloud, as she watches in shock as her blood devours the poison and grows like a virus. Since Pandora has no idea what this means, she quickly tries to return to her human form. However, it only works on the second attempt, when she focuses on the fear of being discovered. Her wound stops healing, and the blood that flows from it turns red instead of violet. The problem Pandora realizes now is that the blood on the ground is still infused with chaos energy and should definitely not be examined. So she quickly focuses on an illusion, casting it over herself and the surroundings to make the blood disappear. In the next moment, she uses a wide plasma fan to burn away all traces of the blood. Now that all the blood has been burned away, Pandora feels a sense of relief as the deafening noise finally starts to subside. She steps around the corner of the skyscraper and gains a clearer view of the figures fighting against each other. A young man with blue eyes stands opposed by a woman and 2 men. They appear dazed, and as his helmet opens once again, Pandora's gaze shifts back to the 3 combatants. She briefly glances around and notices that the woman who had trapped her in those vines is now positioned on the side of this blue-eyed man with the writing ability. As Pandora takes a closer look, she notices different numbers on the right shoulder pads of the various armors. It seems these markings are team identifiers, as she herself sports the number 3 on her own armor. Why didn't I notice that earlier? Pandora wonders to herself. Give our artifact back! Demand 2 members of Team 4. Come and take it then, retorts the boy with blue eyes, the number 2 on his armor. Pandora watches as he holds a 3-sided pyramid in one hand and takes a step backward. As he leaps, it spins and begins to glide across the ground. Something crackles around his feet, resembling electricity as he moves swiftly. Pandora is taken aback by his speed and realizes he's one of those with 2 abilities. The other members of Team 4 quickly follow him. An explosion catches Pandora's attention, and her head still aches from the noise from earlier. As if that weren't enough, she now sees Tomoko swinging around a building and heading straight toward her. Pandora feels increasingly confused by the group battle and realizes she definitely needs more practice in strategic fighting. Keeping track of which team everyone belongs to and where each skirmish is taking place is proving difficult. especially with each participant in this contest possessing unique supernatural abilities, making things even more complicated. There you are, Tomoko calls as she nears. The sunlight glints off Tomoko's visor, and Pandora can feel herself growing tense. This fight will surely not end easily. Tomoko doesn't approach too closely, instead swinging herself toward Pandora with the black substance, looking like oil, creeping out from the seams of her armor and sticking her to the wall without her needing to do anything. "How did you do that just now?" Tomoko asks. "What do you mean?" Pandora responds, feigning ignorance. "I mean, what exactly did you do with my poison?" Tomoko presses. Pandora instinctively flinches, but her exterior remains calm, not wanting to reveal her involvement in neutralizing the poison. She acts like she has no idea what Tomoko is referring to. Although Pandora knows it's a poor excuse, she can't think of a better response at that moment. Her headache slowly starts to subside, and she thinks to herself that she really should acquire an ability to make herself immune to headaches. Such distractions can be quite bothersome. In a life or death battle, adrenaline would likely push the headache away, but since this fight is only for practice, it doesn't feel as serious, and the adrenaline rush is absent. Pandora sees no reason to engage in conversation with Tomoko. Instead, she forms a crackling bluish turquoise energy ball in her hand, and without warning shoots it directly at her opponent. Tomoko quickly raises her hand, and just in time, creates a heavy shield made of solidified poison. Pandora grits her teeth inside her helmet, thinking how annoying this ability is due to its versatility. She conjures 3 more plasma balls and is just about to fire when another explosion erupts nearby, followed by the piercing cry of an eagle. This situation is so abnormal that Pandora isn't even surprised to hear such a sound in a place like this. Tomoko releases herself from the wall, and the black substance envelops her hands and legs, as though alive. Pandora watches as she lands gracefully on the ground and quickly springs to her feet, her movements elegant. For a moment, Pandora had thought she was facing a younger person, but now she sees how unnatural that assumption was. With a swift motion, Pandora fires the 3 plasma balls, but Tomoko only smiles faintly and raises her black shield again. As the first highly concentrated plasma ball hits the shield, it hisses, releasing a foul stench. Moments later, when the second energy ball impacts, an explosion tears the poison shield apart, spreading the black liquid across the surrounding walls and floor. For a brief moment, Pandora sees surprise flicker in Tomoko's eyes before she propels herself through the air with a predator-like leap. Still midair, Pandora transforms back into her vampire form and delivers a powerful kick with all the strength she can muster. The resulting shockwave ruffles her own hair and almost sends her flying back with the same force as her leap. For a moment, she can't see what has happened. Then, as she lands, she notices the armor of her opponent has a noticeable crack where her foot struck Tomoko's head. The damage isn't enough to cause serious injury, but is certainly uncomfortable, making it difficult to move in that armor. Pandora knows that without these armors, a tournament would likely lead to serious injuries very quickly, especially since not everyone can have a body as sturdy as hers. Pandora watched as Tomoko's visor lit up, signaling some kind of activation. With a faint mechanical hiss, the helmet detached, clattering to the ground. The air around Tomoko shimmered slightly as a ripple of paranormal energy emanated from her. Within moments, her form and the damaged suit of armor she wore was gone. Pandora's senses sharpened instinctively as she felt the space briefly distort. It was unmistakable, a short-range teleport. She knew teleportation devices existed, but they were rare and incredibly resource-intensive. They demanded immense computational power and energy, which made their use in something like an annual event completely impractical. The technology was far too expensive, typically reserved for high-priority operations, like launching satellites into orbit. Even then, traditional rocket propulsion had been far more cost-effective in the past. Her thoughts were interrupted by the shrill cry of an eagle, echoing through the ruins. A flash of silver cut through the sky, drawing Pandora's attention. She focused her vision, her arcanis allowing her to zoom in and mark the figure. It was a woman in a futuristic suit of armor, her sleek, metallic frame illuminated by the sunlight filtering through the dilapidated buildings. Two brilliant blue wings extended from slits in her armor, flapping gracefully as she soared through the air. Pandora noted the precision of the armor's design. The slits weren't crude openings, but carefully engineered spaces to accommodate the wings. Interesting, Pandora muttered to herself. While she found the wings aesthetically pleasing, they didn't stir the same hunger she felt when encountering abilities she truly desired to steal. Crouching low, Pandora launched herself forward. Dust and debris swirled around her boots as she sprinted through the cracked streets. Her enhanced physical abilities, combined with her vampiric nature, made her movement fluid and almost predatory. Her shoulder throbbed faintly, a remnant of a superficial wound from earlier, but the healing process was nearly complete. The strange coloration of her blood still lingered in her thoughts. I need to analyze my blood's properties, but I can't let anyone else get their hands on it. My DNA and blood would be far too valuable to the wrong people. Pandora mused as she vaulted over a crumbled wall. Camilla's name flitted through her mind. She could help me with this. She's so eager to please. I doubt she'd question me too much. But I'll need a convincing excuse. Something plausible to throw her off the truth. Pandora adjusted her body mid-air, twisting gracefully so her feet hit the side of a nearby building. With a burst of power, she pushed off the wall and leapt to another, scaling the ruins effortlessly. Normal humans would have been unable to replicate such movements, but Pandora's Arcanis, a talent amplifying her physical strength, allowed her to treat walls as springboards. Still, she hesitated to fully reveal the extent of her abilities. I promised myself I wouldn't show more than 3 talents in public. I need to maintain some mystery. She frowned. Limiting herself to enhanced strength and plasma manipulation would make winning the tournament's final event challenging, but Pandora thrived on challenges. It's through obstacles like this that I grow stronger. If I can master my existing talents now, I'll be better prepared for the unexplored territories. Those wild, uncharted lands hold greater opportunities to uncover new powers and become even stronger. She pushed herself harder, her senses sharpening as she neared the source of the explosions and chaos. At last, she arrived at the heart of the turmoil. Her eyes locked onto the woman with blue wings, who now held a pyramid-shaped artifact in her hand. The woman hovered midair, her wings spreading majestically behind her. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed across the ruins, deep and mechanical. The artifact of Team 3 has been stolen by Team 5. Pandora instinctively glanced at her right shoulder, where the number 3 glowed faintly on her armor. She narrowed her eyes. Her armor, like everyone else's in the tournament, was designed to obscure individual identities beyond team affiliation. This anonymity made discerning friend from foe much harder, adding another layer of complexity to the event. But one thing was clear. The woman with the blue wings had her team's artifact, and Pandora wasn't about to let her keep it. Just you wait. I'll show you how it's done, Pandora thinks. I wonder what your face will look like in the future when I reveal my true intentions. Oh, how beautiful your expression will be when you realize the greatest danger to the heroes lies within their own ranks. But to achieve all of this, I first have to get into the Helios Academy, Pandora muses with a slight hint of irony. Pandora had expected a lot, but not such a highly complex battlefield as she now sees. Considering that all participants in this tournament can only use their abilities and not even weapons, a real fight between heroes and villains would be far more brutal and chaotic than what she is witnessing now. Pandora notices a young man seemingly controlling electricity, disabling the armor of others, and even delivering electric shocks. This ability doesn't appear to have much destructive power, but is still dangerous. Another person blows someone away, and yet another seems to emit shockwaves with short screams, having a similar effect to the first person with the air-blowing ability. These two individuals seem to have comparable powers. However, as everyone knows, abilities in this world are never identical. Even in just this one location, Pandora sees so many abilities that she has to muster all her self-control to hold herself back from devouring them. For a brief moment, Pandora wonders if she might be more than just a little crazy. Can I even claim that what I do is good, considering that what the heroes do isn't exactly good either? Is it wrong for me to want to steal the abilities of others? Should I perhaps focus on stealing abilities from monsters instead? Alternatively, I could wait for people to die and then steal their powers? Pandora ponders. Retreat, we've got what we need, says the woman with the blue wings and yellow golden eyes. Pandora acknowledges the strategic advantage of having individuals who can fly overseeing the battlefield from above. The only question now is, what happens when the air is just as crowded as the ground? Pandora knows that the ability to fly is generally rare. However, she can circumvent that without actually flying herself. This brings her back to the dilemma of whether she should reveal more of her abilities or not. She doesn't even want to imagine the catastrophe that could ensue if someone discovered she has multiple abilities. Statistically speaking, she might be able to explain having 3 abilities, but even that would be difficult, let alone having more than 5. People would likely think she's lying, or worse, consider her a threat. If I want to play the role of a hero on the good side, I must keep my cards close to my chest. I cannot allow the Heroes Association to learn anything about me or my abilities, Pandora resolves. Pandora senses a familiar paranormal energy approaching her. She wonders if the individual already knows her location or is merely flying past. When Pandora sees Camilla, she thinks it's not really flying, but rather falling. Since Camilla can control gravity, her method of flying is more like altering the vector of her gravity to fall in the direction she wants to move. It looks as odd as it sounds. Pandora still finds it strange to watch Camilla essentially fall horizontally. Camilla definitely lacks elegance in her flying technique. Camilla flies past Pandora, their gazes instinctively meeting, and Pandora waves at her. It's an incredibly brief moment, but in that instant, Pandora notices Camilla's battered armor, with a piece even missing in one spot. Camilla pivots in midair and falls toward Pandora. In Pandora's eyes, Camilla seems to have been quite diligent in her fighting efforts. Camilla lands gracefully in front of Pandora, executing a small curtsy, and proudly displays the 2 pyramid-shaped artifacts she has stolen from other teams. Possessing 2 out of the 10 artifacts is certainly proof that Camilla should not be underestimated. Pandora is sure the 2 other teams are fuming right now. At that moment, Pandora feels a massive surge of energy swelling from the direction Team 4 is retreating. Team 4, as Pandora sees on the holographic map in her visor, has the artifact from Team 3, their own artifact, and the artifact from Team 2. What's the deal with this immense paranormal energy? Pandora asks, uninterested in the fight. That must be the S-rank guy from Team 4, Camilla replies. Isn't an S-rank supposed to be rare? Pandora asks. Well, it's rare for a practical ability to have the second highest rank. However, you can think of it like a tool. If a tool is quite useless and barely functions, it doesn't really matter how much power it has if it comes with too many limitations. The same goes for Arcanus. Just because a superpower is strong doesn't necessarily mean it can be used effectively, let alone that it poses a threat to anyone. The rank only refers to the power, not its utility. So while it's true that powerful and useful abilities are rare, it's not unusual for people to possess immense raw power. Personally, I know at least 20 S-rank Arcanus users with useless or severely limited abilities, Camilla explains. That's interesting. So that means... never mind. Camilla, let's take these artifacts back to our team's starting point, or wherever that place was, says Pandora. Camilla follows Pandora, and together they manage to protect the 2 artifacts with their team. Team 10, Team 5, and Team 3 each have 2 artifacts, while the other artifacts were destroyed. That means we have 3 winners, says a voice, floating gently through the air like a breeze. The faint, musty smell, mixed with the scent of flowers and bones, is stirred up by the helicopters arriving to pick up the participants. The futuristic armor of all participants, flawless in black and red at the start of the hour, now exists in various states of wear and tear. In the end, it all worked out just as I planned. I didn't attract too much attention to myself, but just enough to secure a place at Helios Academy. Pandora thinks to herself. Frank watches Pandora and Camilla sitting close together. For some reason, he can't pinpoint why he feels something strange about the 2 girls. Frank looks into Pandora's violet-purple eyes, tinged with a hint of deep red, then shifts his gaze to Camilla. Camilla's eyes are just as beautiful and elegant as Pandora's, but somehow sharper. If not for the fact that Camilla is a full head taller than Pandora, visibly more muscular, and has her scar, one could almost say the two look quite similar. Pandora leans her head slightly on Camilla's shoulder and gazes out of the helicopter's rounded, porthole-like window into the distance. "I might need your help with something," says Pandora. "It's about testing something I want to research biologically, but I don't want the data from the tests to end up anywhere," Pandora whispers into Camilla's ear. Camilla sees no issue with that. She already has a few pieces of lab equipment and begins thinking about how she could conduct the research without leaving, or barely leaving, any digital traces. It would definitely be possible to simply erase the storage media after the research is done. "What exactly do you want to research?" Camilla asks casually, with a hint of curiosity. Pandora makes a nonchalant gesture and tells her they can discuss it later. When Pandora lands back in the Alpha Metropolis, her body feels drained. The first thing she does after finally surviving the exhausting Metacup is treat herself to a nice shower. Pandora enters the locker room before the shower and slowly undresses. She is in no rush as she slides her pants off first. She has already handed in her armor, leaving her in just simple clothes. As the air brushes against her lower body, she notices she cannot perceive the warmth of the air. Being resistant to both heat and cold is as much a blessing as it is a curse, as everything now feels lukewarm to her. While it is not impossible for her to feel warmth or cold, it is significantly harder for her to notice the difference due to her resistance to temperature fluctuations. Pandora smirks slightly as she takes off her top, folds it, places it atop her pants, and puts them away on the shelf. She finds it amusing in a way that she can no longer feel her own flames, their heat. However, the flames of others that she didn't create, or the fire ignited when her own flame set objects ablaze, she can still feel. Should I take a warm shower or not? I suppose it would be more energy efficient to just stick to cold water, Pandora muses as she sets the water temperature to relatively cold. She enjoys the sensation of the water running down her delicate skin, tracing her figure. The light from the neon lamps in the room reflects off the individual droplets cascading down from her chest, along her navel, and down to her waist, making the droplets glimmer like tiny diamonds. Pandora feels oddly calm in this moment. As she relaxes in the shower, exposed and uncovered, two other women, similarly undressed, enter the shower area. Pandora observes them with mild interest. To Pandora, it is only slightly intriguing how they look, what hairstyles they have, and their body shapes, not in any other sense. She understands the societal concepts of modesty and shame, but that doesn't mean she fully comprehends them. Something tugs at the back of her mind, pulling her attention away from reality. Her thoughts shift to Fox, who claims to be the daughter of the clan chief of the Asylum clan, and to the teacher, or tutor as she's formally called, Luma. Since Luma has called in sick around the time Pandora might have seen her, it's not impossible that Luma noticed Pandora's potential, and Pandora intends to find out. However, Pandora hadn't expected Luma to come to her. Page 8. Pandora stands under the shower, water flowing over her shoulders and down to her chest. Her heartbeat quickens as her gaze meets the eyes of the other two women in the room. In this moment, with her entire body exposed, from her medium-sized breasts to the small scars on her hands and her intimate area, there's something subtly thrilling about it. She feels a strange, unfamiliar sensation in her lower abdomen. "What are you staring at?" asks the shorter woman with dark blue hair and orange golden eyes. She is slightly smaller than Pandora and covers her body with her blue wings, seemingly uncomfortable with being watched. Pandora just shrugs and looks away. At that moment, she doesn't fully understand why she was so interested or what that feeling was. The tingling sensation in her lower abdomen is pleasant and exciting, but it fades quickly. The sound of the shower trickling becomes a soothing background noise as Pandora sinks into her thoughts. It would be wonderful if there were a way for the powers I want to steal to come to me on their own, so I wouldn't have to make the effort to steal them. How can I automate this for the future? Pandora wonders, her right hand unconsciously gliding over her skin. The touch of her fingers tracing the outlines of her abdominal muscles feels electric. That warm sensation returns, spreading through her body in a way that even her heat resistance cannot block. Relaxing, Pandora follows her feelings. Since I can steal powers from both the living and the dead, and not just humans, but all beings with supernatural abilities, Arcanus, the most efficient method would be to have others do the work for me. If I could find a way or create a system where others hunt monsters or defeat criminal gangs on my behalf, and I then collect the abilities, it would have the desired effect. But for now, it seems more practical to have people working for me focus solely on hunting monsters in unexplored regions or wilderness areas, she thinks. The two women in the shower glance toward her. The younger and smaller one blushes slightly, covering her eyes with one wing and her body with the other. Moments later, the two women leave. Pandora notes how certain parts of her body feel more sensitive than others. When she steps out of the shower, Pandora is surprised by how much she enjoyed it. She gets dressed and, with her hair still wet, exits the shower room into the locker area and then into a sort of communal lounge. She pays little attention to the futuristic elements of the room and heads straight for the exit. The door slides into the wall as it registers Pandora's approach, and she leaves the whispers behind. She could have listened in, but isn't interested. As Pandora walks through the halls of the Meta Cup venue, she notices that even after the official end of the event, the area remains bustling. People swarm outside the Meta Center like ants, frantically chattering away. Pandora admits to herself that the comparison to ants might be a little harsh. Scanning the crowd with her eyes for Leon, she spots a surprising scene. Leon standing next to Icy and a tall blonde woman with gray-green-blue eyes, whom Pandora immediately recognizes. Now that she sees Icy and Leon side by side, Pandora has to admit that they look quite similar. She hadn't noticed it before, but now it's obvious. They must be related. The question lingers in Pandora's mind as to what Luma is doing here, leaning against the limousine. Luma is someone she didn't expect to encounter in this place. Leon, of course, was expected, but this combination is unexpected. "Hello, Pandora. I'm Luma. Nice to meet you," Luma says, extending her hand as Pandora approaches them from the crowd. Pandora's gaze shifts from Luma to Leon and Icy. In this moment, Pandora feels almost certain that Leon and Icy must be related. Icy doesn't just look like Leon. She also possesses a very similar Arcanus. Pandora doesn't know the exact mechanics of their ice-based abilities, but they're too similar to be a coincidence. Combined with their appearance, the two must be family. "Hi, I'm Icy. We met during the Meta Cup, although our encounter was a bit brief. I'm Leon's daughter," she says. "So it seems you two have plenty to talk about. In the meantime, I'd like to speak with Pandora about something as well," Luma says. This leads to Luma and Pandora stepping away from Leon and his daughter. Leon locks eyes with Luma, and to Pandora, it seems as though the two have known each other for quite some time. Leon tells Luma not to drag Pandora into any of her schemes, as he wants what's best for Pandora. He doesn't explicitly state what his relationship with Pandora is. Luma feels slightly insulted that Leon accuses her of involving Pandora in schemes. But when Luma's gaze falls on Pandora, her expression becomes serious again, and for a brief moment, a flicker of fear flashes in her eyes, quickly replaced by determination and something Pandora can't quite identify. "So, what do you want to discuss with me? And I'd also like to know what your connection to Leon is," Pandora asks. "Leon and I have known each other since our time at the Helios Academy. He was 3 classes ahead of me, but we always got along quite well. However, the reason I wanted to talk to you is that I've seen your potential," Luma says. For a brief moment, Luma sees a dangerous glint flash in Pandora's eyes, but it vanishes as quickly as it appeared. Her heart starts beating faster, and she feels reassured that she chose to approach Pandora in Leon's presence and amidst a large crowd. Deep down, something tells her that speaking to Pandora in private might have been very dangerous. "With potential like yours, I wanted to offer you a bit of help. It would be a shame if the wrong people discovered it and tried to exploit you," Luma says. "I managed just fine on my own." Pandora replies, testing Luma's intentions. "I don't doubt that at all, but that's not my point. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere else, Luma suggests. Did you tell anyone about my potential, or disclose anything about it in any way? And what exactly did you see? Pandora asks in a dangerously soft tone, her voice nearly lost in the background noise of the crowd. Luma feels the sharpness of Pandora's words, as if they were blades piercing into her mind. When the thought crosses her mind to share even a small truth, her instincts scream at her to stop. Every alarm in her body rings. Outwardly, Pandora appears calm and relaxed, her body language that of a harmless, youthful girl. Yet Luma cannot shake the feeling that Pandora is a predator, simply waiting to strike. When Luma finally answers that she hasn't told anyone, the tension in the air dissipates. Correct answer, Pandora's voice says, though her lips do not move. Now, what did you see? Pandora asks again, her ghostly tone unnerving. Luma truthfully admits that she's not entirely sure anymore, only that she recalls an overwhelming, limitless sensation. Pandora tenses slightly at this response. Correct answer, Pandora repeats, and suddenly darkness consumes everything in Luma's sight. Moments later, Luma finds herself in an utterly black void, dotted with scattered white stars. Pandora extends her hand and leads Luma into a dark alley, or at least, that's how it appears to the outside world. In reality, Pandora is maintaining an illusion, carefully ensuring it seems realistic from all angles. Using her fire-based arcanus, she creates a pocket of heated air that gives the illusion physical warmth, making it all the more convincing. Pandora notices that no one has paid any real attention to what she and Luma are doing. Raising her hand, Pandora opens a portal into her pocket dimension. The portal is as invisible as Pandora herself, leaving only the faintest sense of displacement as they pass through it. It's truly a blessing, Pandora thinks, that her illusion ability is so easy to use. The only limitation is her imagination. On the surface, this doesn't sound restrictive, but in practice, creating a perfect illusion requires her to imagine every detail, the appearance, the smell, everything. Any imperfection in her mental image could disrupt the illusion's realism. Pandora knows that if someone looks closely enough, they might spot minor inconsistencies. Hello, is someone there? Luma asks. Yes, I was just doing something, Pandora responds as they step into her pocket dimension. Luma's heart skips a beat when she sees Pandora. Her violet eyes shimmer with a dangerous light. Luma had expected Pandora to be extraordinary, but nothing could have prepared her for this. Pandora's gaze feels penetrating, almost drilling into her. Though it's unclear what has changed or where they are, Luma senses that Pandora has dropped any pretense of being kind. Pulling herself together, Luma thinks, if I want to be on her side and benefit from what she's going to achieve, I need to make a good impression. Luma is certain she must choose her next words carefully. The threatening glint in Pandora's eyes, and her earlier question about whether Luma had disclosed anything about her potential lead. Luma to one conclusion. Pandora does not want her talent or power to become public knowledge. How do I ask her what her goals are and what she wants to do? I can't just say outright that I want to work for her because it seems like a better deal than the Hero Association offers, Luma ponders. I think it was a good idea to discuss it here, said Luma. I could do something to you here that you wouldn't like. Why aren't you afraid? Pandora replied, why should I be afraid? There's always something in this world that could kill me. And if I spent all my time fearing death, I'd be in the wrong place working for the Heroes Association, Luma said. The casual way Luma spoke gave Pandora the impression that she was completely serious. Even when Pandora, just to be sure, used her Arcanus lie detector, she could feel Luma was telling the truth. What do you mean by that? Pandora asked. Simple. In this world, there's no such thing as a free meal. I believe working with you is a good decision. I understand you could kill me right now in this room, but I'm just not interested in living with fear anymore. If I'm going to die, I'll die knowing I have no regrets in my life. Besides, there's nothing you can do in this world without taking risks, so I have the right to live my life how I want. If you or Mogren kill me now, then so be it. I'll just live in the present. In the end, the only thing I'll have to reflect on is my own choices, and I'll face those consequences when they come, Luma said. Pandora felt a raw honesty in Luma's words, a sincerity her abilities couldn't fully explain. She couldn't have imagined that someone could live so freely in the present without fear. It felt strange, but Pandora sensed a connection to Luma and decided for now not to eliminate her, even if she did pose a danger. Luma had piqued Pandora's interest, and talking with her a little longer might prove beneficial. "Why are you so calm in this situation? I was expecting something else," Pandora said. "Well, it's a long story. But basically, after my time at the Helios Academy, the Heroes Association never treated me well. It's always been that way, but things got particularly bad afterward. Even though I got this job, it's only because my ability is so practical. Since I can remember, the Heroes Association has treated me like an outsider because I'm the daughter of someone who's done some bad things. If my mother was, by the hero's definition, a villain, they've treated me as if I were one too," Luma said. Luma wasn't sure why she was being so detailed. Maybe it was a part of her yearning to share her story with someone without being judged as good or evil. Or maybe it was something else she couldn't quite pinpoint. She strongly suspected Pandora could detect lies with one of her powers. But that didn't matter. Luma just wanted someone to hear her story and acknowledge the injustice she'd faced. During the conversation, Luma confessed she had never told Leon about her situation, though she assumed he already knew without needing to discuss it. "So, you could say I'm living as a hero because I couldn't get a better job. And since I'll only live once, I don't care how long I last. Whether I live to 90 and achieve all my goals or die at the hands of a villain, it doesn't matter. I suspect you have more than 2 Arcanus, maybe even more than 3. But how that's possible isn't important to me. I'm also guessing you can sense my lies with one of your abilities. So I think it's better to be straightforward. Well, I'm always direct because I never know when I'll die." "Life is short," Luma said, feeling slightly nervous. The thought of death gave her a small shiver, though the pain it might bring was what truly scared her. She disliked pain, but then again, who didn't? "Well then," Pandora said, striking so quickly that Luma couldn't react. She saw the claws coming toward her, and her life flashed before her eyes. She saw her mother, saw her being arrested, and later saw her execution in a secret location by the Heroes Association. But the pain never came. Luma opened her eyes and saw the claws stop inches from her chest. Pandora's eyes shimmered a violet hue, and her hair slowly turned white. Pandora realized she was taking a risk revealing herself, but she had a strong feeling Luma could be useful. Besides, she wanted to test something new, something she suspected her vampiric nature could accomplish. Theoretically, it should work. You're a vampire?" Luma asked, completely thrown off. Even if she wanted to escape, her Arcanus would be useless in this room, and the sheer shock made it impossible for her to even think of fleeing. "Yes, and if I'm going to trust you, you'll have to drink my blood. If you don't, I won't be able to trust you," Pandora said, slicing her hand open with her sharp claws. Immediately, violet blood began flowing from her veins. Pandora quickly realized she didn't have a container to catch the blood. Luma stared, seeing for the first time that a vampire's blood was violet. She understood this was a method of intimidation. Pandora was revealing multiple secrets at once. "What will you do if I don't drink it?" Luma asked. Pandora thought about the drastic measures she might have to take. She knew she couldn't eliminate Luma in this space, but she could manage it in a way that wouldn't trace back to her. Alternatively, she could make Luma disappear entirely and polarize the body later using immense paranormal energy. But outwardly, Pandora gave no response. Her white-silver hair shimmered like woven starlight. Luma hesitated for only a moment before taking Pandora's hand and drinking the blood. On her tongue, the taste exploded into a mix of strawberries and elderflower syrup, sweet and almost melting in her mouth. As Pandora watched Luma drink, she felt a connection form between them. That such a bond could be established surprised Pandora. What they were doing fulfilled all the conditions for turning a human into a vampire. Still, Pandora hadn't fully believed it would work. Her thoughts raced. If she dies from my blood, I'll know not to turn anyone else into a vampire. But if she survives, I'll have plenty of experiments to conduct with my blood. For now, this amount should be enough. A dark anticipation filled Pandora as she waited to see what would happen. I didn't think this would work so well, Pandora thinks, amused. But there's something Pandora perceives only at the edges of her mind. It's like an enormous, powerful presence lurking just beyond her field of vision. Something incomprehensible. Pandora compares the sensation to the one she experienced when she first flew with her black skeletal wings, questioning why she was even able to fly in the first place. It feels as though there's a force as powerful as the logic of the world itself, and what she just sensed was nearly identical, only closer. In her imagination, the image of a massive, shadowy figure forms, something she cannot comprehend. While Pandora is preoccupied with trying to understand what she just perceived, Luma begins her transformation into a half-vampire. Pandora watches as Luma's eyes roll back and her body goes limp. First, the veins in her face darken, spreading out as a violet-purple color courses through her bloodstream, reaching every part of her body. Moments later, when the process is complete, Luma opens her eyes, which appear black for a brief moment before settling into a glowing violet hue. "What just happened?" Luma asks. She has a faint suspicion that the blood she drank has caused changes within her. Feeling the transformation in her body, she looks at Pandora and waits for an explanation. "You drank my blood," Pandora replies, expecting Luma to already understand what this means. "And?" Luma presses, confused. Pandora realizes, as she notices the bewildered look on Luma's face, that she truly has no idea what this entails. Pandora temporarily pushes aside the strange sensations she experienced earlier and focuses on Luma. She considers how best to explain. "You probably know how slowly vampires reproduce, right?" Pandora asks, her tone carrying a hint of condescension, as if speaking to a child. "Yes, but what does that have to do with drinking blood?" Luma responds. "It's simple. When a human drinks vampire blood, they transform into one. However, both parties must consent, or it simply won't work. Since you willingly drank my blood, you've now become part of my bloodline. Honestly, I didn't think it was actually possible." Pandora says, her tone light and detached. Pandora raises her hand and alters the surroundings. The absolute darkness, while dramatic, starts to annoy her. She changes it to a grayish-brown, stony texture. "I was actually planning to get rid of you if this didn't work, but now that it has, I'd like to run a few more tests," Pandora says in a monotone, emotionless voice. While Pandora knows what her mother taught her about vampire blood, the practical application of bloodlines is much less straightforward. Theory and practice often diverge, and every vampire's blood is different. Pandora knows this is especially true of her own. Even now, she cannot sense the faintest trace of magic in herself or Luma. Upon closer inspection, Pandora realizes that the supernatural properties of her blood aren't caused by magic, but by chaos energy. Pandora had sensed chaos energy in her blood before, but the idea that this energy, known for defying the world's logic and rewriting its own rules, could replace magic within her blood surprises her. "I can't believe that magic has been replaced by chaos energy. That's why my blood has the same properties as normal vampire blood," Pandora mutters to herself. Luma, meanwhile, thinks to herself, "I've been used as a test subject. That's pretty messed up, but maybe now she'll trust me." She struggles to suppress her frustration. Her thoughts shift when she realizes that chaos energy should have killed her. Yet, for some unknown reason, it didn't poison her or cause her to mutate. In Luma's eyes, Pandora seems reckless, willing to conduct experiments without knowing the outcome. But in a strange way, Pandora's honesty feels more valuable to Luma than the false righteousness and broken promises of so-called heroes. Luma finds a small sense of satisfaction in the fact that Pandora doesn't bother to conceal her intentions, perhaps because Luma is no longer a threat to her. Luma can feel a thin connection between herself and Pandora. On a primal, instinctive level, she knows that Pandora can sense her location and communicate with her through this bond. "Test, test, can you hear me?" Pandora's voice echoes through Luma's very bones. Startled, Luma looks around, trying to find the source of the voice. Pandora quickly explains that this isn't telepathy, but something else entirely. She reassures Luma that their ability to communicate this way is a good thing. Pandora, however, internally resolves to hide just how little she truly knows about bloodlines. She senses that she could pinpoint Luma's coordinates through this connection. Well then, welcome to my service. I'd like your contact details now, Pandora says, extending her holographic armband. Luma reluctantly presses her own armband against Pandora's, exchanging contact information. Pandora seems satisfied, while Luma struggles to suppress her frustration. She asks if this is all Pandora needs. Pandora thinks for a moment before confirming that it is. Pandora raises her hand, and the space before them begins to fracture in the air. As the rift in space and reality spreads, absolute darkness becomes visible within it. Pandora steps toward the portal and tells Luma not to reveal her new abilities to anyone. As Pandora steps through the portal, Luma watches her image distort, as if being stretched into infinite distance. The eerie sight unsettles Luma, but she quickly follows. The moment they exit the strange space, they're abruptly back in the bustling metropolis of Alpha. Pandora appears relaxed and completely normal again, as if she had never been the terrifying girl toying with others' lives. Pandora tells Luma she'll be in touch before walking away with Leon, disappearing into the crowd of Alpha's metropolis. And that was the story here on Neolin S. This was the 13th part of Pandora and the Eternal War. I hope you enjoyed the video and that it made you excited for the upcoming parts. If you want to find out what happens next, make sure to tune in again. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the playlist with all the previous parts. On the left side, you'll find the link to my latest video. And at the top center, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel to never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.